This is a video which has probably been quite a long time coming for the channel, and one that's been requested and one that I've wanted to make for a very long time. If you follow my channel, you'll know that I've got a long-standing history with Doc Martens. I've used them for years. I've been through the process of thinking they're brilliant on the 4Life deals, and also had some recent disappointments with the classic 1460s and the Hardlife boots, which are offered in replacement for the 4Life range. Both have had sort of premature failures of structure. I've always had issues with the longevity of the soles. I do accept to a degree that's in the nature of the design. Every time I go online and discuss this, Reddit, in the comments below these videos, people always say the made in England boots are far superior than the outsourced Hardlifes or 4Lifes, and moreover they say Solovair make the boots that made Doc Martens famous. Now, if you look back on my channel, you can find out a little bit of history on Solovair and their relationship with Doc Martens, but in a nutshell, Solovair are the MPS company, and the MPS company made the early Doc Martens and continued to make them under license for many years. So if you had your Doc Martens in the early 80s, if that's what you're remembering, or they're the legends of Doc Martens durability that you've heard, they would have been made in the same factory that now makes the Solovair boot. Now, there's also been discussion over the made in England boots, these ones here, being made in the same factory as Solovair. I don't believe that's true. I do believe the factories are incredibly close to each other, and maybe did used to be one and the same factory, but I'll put a couple of links below to videos which other people have made over on the construction of the boots, and very similar construction, but distinctly different machines, different factory layouts. They're not the same factory, and I challenge you to prove that not to be the case. They do look very much the different factory, but at the same time, same city, probably the same industrial estate, maybe the same street, but not the same factory, I don't believe. So here we are. I am going to mainly focus on the made in England boots and Solovair for this video, and as we move forwards. The outsourced boots I'll keep in the mix here. They have got something to offer and a few points to reflect on, but generally we're looking at the made in England boots. Now, just moving things aside here, there's two things really to discuss first of all, and that is the soles and the leather. And whilst we'll come in for some detailed close-ups in a minute to look at how these boots are put together, the long-standing issue with this style of boot, longevity, is the soles. So they all have this cushioned rubber sole, and they're all slightly different, but fundamentally the same type of sole, and really a sole that you don't find on many other boots at all. The only way I could actually think of objectively testing how these soles may function, and then obviously I'll subjectively test them by wear, is through the use of a durometer tester. Now, I must say, we don't normally get this scientific on the channel, but it was the only way I could think of actually finding out objectively if there was anything materially different between these soles. My wife has started to wonder about me, the fact that I'm starting to test the hardness of rubber in shoes, and maybe this hobby has gone a little bit too far, but the durometer tester has yielded some interesting details on these. Basically, there's two sorts of durometer testers, type A and I think there's type B. Type B is for very hard materials, this is for soft materials including rubbers. And basically you just push this pin into the material until it's depressed flush, and it will give you a hardness rating. I've tried to do all the boots on the similar areas on the arch here, where there's a good solid material, because it does need to rest flat, and what it's told me does bear out some of the internet legend. So part of the internet legend is that the Made in England soles are better than the outsourced soles. They're more durable. Now, what I did find is that they're marginally harder. Their sole design is, I think, pretty much identical. We will have a look on the close-ups, but pretty much identical. But the hardness is different. So I did sort of several tests just to get the average. On the Hardlifes, the soles are the softest out of the three, so they're about 59.5 Rockwell hardness, and the Made in England are 61.4 on average. I did seem to get a bit more variation, but maybe that's down to my technique, but on average they're marginally harder. Now what really is telling is the Solovair are harder again, considerably so. So these are hardness of 66.3 Rockwell. I also believe that the tread is marginally deeper. I don't have anything to measure it because it is very marginal. But also the tread design, I think the ripples or the ridges are a thicker width. They're wider. I think you put more of that sole in contact with the floor. So I do believe, objectively, based on the information that's in front of me, the Solovair will be marginally harder than both the Doc Martens models. So there's that. How we test that in real life. I know how the Hardlifes wear, but the Made in Englands and the Solovair I haven't tested fully. What I'm going to do is I'm going to wear these two boots in rotation, in pairs obviously. It would look rather strange if I didn't. And I will try and wear them in equal measure. I'm going to use my commute to work, which is about 1.5 miles each way, as my test bed. So I'm going to go through a series of tests. So initially it'll be breaking in, so I think probably 2 weeks per pair, which will make, I think, about 60 miles of walking. And then obviously following that up with a 6-month look, and we'll see how they break in, how they fare, whether the materials are equal, better in either case, and we'll see what happens. The other thing to note is the leather. Now, the leather, I kind of wanted the Solovairs to be a breath of fresh air. Now, they are very much the leather you attribute to Dr. Martens of old. Very smooth on the inside. So I believe this is what's called a corrected leather, so it's not full grain. And it's just got this classic, shiny, fairly thin feel to it. Now, the Made in Englands, on the other hand, still got that shiny look, but on the inside you see that it's got a nice grain to it. I think they're probably pretty much the same thickness, although the Solovairs have got piping around the top here, but I do kind of lean towards this Quillian, I think they call it, leather in the Made in Englands, but it'll all come out as we test these and see how they go. So let's get in some close-ups and take a look at how these look at some detail on these boots. The similarities are quite obvious. The difference is maybe a little bit more subtle. On the whole, I feel that the Solovair is a bit more of a refined boot. It doesn't have the ridged edges to the sole, which is obviously classic Doc Marten look. Interesting on these, handmade very much so, but slight sort of undercut to the sides here, which I'm not quite sure if that's quite right. I always expect the sides to be completely vertical, but that's by the by. But the sides don't have that traditional Doc Martens ribbing. It is cut flush. It's slightly sort of got a slight chatter to it where they've sort of machined it off, but a different look. Again, the sole is two parts, so you've got the harder upper last with the heat bonded wearing sole below it, and then you've got the stitching around the edge here. Now the Solovair have gone for their own branded grey stitch, obviously trying to distance slightly from the Doc Martens look, and it does have that smarter look. The pitch or the frequency of the stitch is much tighter, so almost half the length, which gives it a bit more of a traditional sort of crafted look. So yeah, bit of a difference there. Again, aesthetic. Elsewhere, there's just a slightly bit more refined feel to the Solovair, generally to do with the stitch thickness, the colouring of the stitch, and the pitch of the stitch frequency. Both obviously use the 3-stitch Puritan machine, which is quite a rarity, I think, but still utilised in both factories. Very, very similar looking boot. Probably the only slight difference is the Solovair's got a bit more pronounced toe box, which I think gives it a slightly nicer proportion, but each their own. Very subtle, only probably notice it side by side. They are slightly different sizes, so we'll step on to the fit. Now I normally go true to size, so size 8 in a Doc Martens, size 8 in Red Wings. I generally find that's okay. I never size down. The discomfort of sizing down and getting it wrong is a real problem. So what I tend to do, if a boot's slightly larger fitting, I'll wear a thick sock. Both of these have a relatively narrow last. Now, Solovair is a company which offers half sizes, so both these have been fitted by the companies concerned. So I went into the bricks and mortar store locally for the Doc Martens. Lovely lady in there, very passionate about Doc Martens, really good experience, and we came up with an 8. As expected, I certainly wouldn't expect to go to a 9, and I'd be deeply concerned if they were recommending a 7. So that size is an 8. This, based on Solovair's measuring technique and the guidance I had by email when I engaged with them, we've come out with an 8.5, or 8.5 rather. Actually, side by side, heel to toe, there's no real difference. But I've taken recommendations on both, so hopefully that allows for a fair comparison. So moving up the boot, very similar construction, only slight differences with the stitch. Heel tabs, very, very similar. The only probable sort of standout difference is the piping at the edge here, which gives a little bit more of a finished look on the Solivairs, but on the Doc Martens it allows that grained leather to just pop out a little bit, and actually this has been a standout feature for these boots. This is a really nice looking bit of leather actually. I'm really interested to see how this wears. The Solivairs, very much like the Doc Martens Classics, a very smooth, corrected leather, as I say. I think that's called. But the proof will be in the wearing. There's no obvious difference in thickness. I might actually see if I can measure that, if I can get some sort of instrument to do that, and I'd also like to measure the depth of the tread, but that's maybe for a different day. Now inside, if you can look in there, very similar construction inside. Both have a lined vamp, so the front of the foot, and a stitched or a heel cap on the inside here. Now that's where I had the problem with the Hardlifes. That broke away after a relatively short amount of time, but we will see how these go. I've got high hopes. Nice foil branding on the inside, date stamps, or Made in England stamps rather, with the size there. Watch the videos I link below. Really nice seeing how this is made in the old style way. Little jigs with the numbers lined up and printed on. Really nice, and very similar when you look inside the Solovair. The Solovair actually has a added leather pad there on the insole, which allows for a little bit more comfort on the most basic way, to be honest, but a little bit of foil lettering on it, and again individually stamped with model number, size. Not sure if there's a date reference on there, but very similar. And as I say, a lined forefoot. Just popping onto the soles. I know I've talked about the soles and the materials, but I just thought I'd show it to you close up here. I do believe the Solovair actually has more tread in contact with the ground. Certainly a demonstrably harder material, and interestingly the difference between the Made in England and the outsourced sole is clearly a very similar design, if not identical, but a very different material. This is amber translucent, this is a sort of toffee coloured, mainly opaque sole, so it'll be interesting to see how this wears, because the internet tells me this will wear better than this, and then the Solovairs may well win over time, but we'll see. That brings us to the close of the video. Maybe a little bit longer than I'd anticipated, but hopefully it's shown you a little bit about what you'll find in these boots. I am quite pleased to have been able to establish whether there's likely to be any truth in the longevity of the soles. I really do think that there could well be. I do expect the Solovairs to wear much better in the sole, but we'll see over time. As I say, we'll be doing a long-term test on these two Made in England boots, so the Made in England Martens and the Made in England Solovair, and we'll see how those fare. So I'll give you honest updates as we go. I'll expect to get the first update of whichever one I start with, covering the 2-week breaking in experience, which is what I do on a boot, and then I'll bring them both together and have some reflections on the variation of that experience between the two. Then we'll follow up with 6 monthly and 12 monthly updates. Now, I realise that these aren't getting the same level of wear of some of the other boots I've reviewed, but this is more a comparison test, so my focus will be on using these boots in equal measure. The Hardlifes, well, please check back on my channel, you can find out a bit about those. I have had some disappointments with those. The heel cap broke on the previous pair, but over time hopefully we'll get these back into circulation, and maybe we'll find out that was unlucky the first time. Okay, well, we'll do some follow-up videos, and I hope that's useful. If you haven't seen my channel before, please check it out. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Lots of boot reviews on the channel, quality denim, everyday carry, fountain pens, pen knives, that sort of stuff. Check it out, we might share some other common interests. Obviously I'd love it if you subscribed, and I'll see you for the next video. Okay, thank you very much, bye bye.